We know that we were voting, but we really actually didn't know what we were voting for. My feelings were like, okay, I'm going to vote and I hope my vote counts.
We participate in an electoral system that was never designed for our participation as citizens of the United States.
We need more encouragement and more support to our young people to get involved and to be a part of these systems.
I want to be able to honor them by voting. And as young people, we have the privilege of being able to show up for our elders and the rest of our community.
Every election must ensure that no decisions are made about us without us.
I think there's so much history, important history, that goes into being able to vote. As citizens in the nation, there's that part of history that we all learn and know about. A lot of the other history that we don't hear too much about is of Indigenous tribal women and their experiences through voting. And so in each way, everybody has their own stories, their own knowledge, and their own understanding of our government, and not just through a national government, a federal government, but through a state government and a tribal government.
Right.
A lot of that, being able to share that information and those experiences is really important.
My name is Rita River. I was born in Fort Wasky in 1937. October 3rd, 1937. And I was born and raised on a reservation all my life. We voted in Old Community Hall in 1950. That was all at the Old Community Hall where everybody came. The old people came on horseback, wagons, or some walked in. So that's where we started voting, was from the old community hall at River Bottom. Well, when we were voting, well, we know that we were voting, but we really actually didn't know what we were voting for. But it was our Native American voting that was really important at that time, because they were the ones that were elected to run our business, and they used to travel to Washington for our other business. I think it was a good thing that we voted because we were counted too in our voting. So that's what I know about voting. My name is Faye Ann Soldua, and I was born in 1957. My earliest memory of voting was at Arapaho School when I turned 18 in 1978. Sometimes my dad used to interpret to them what was going on and who they were voting for and what it was for. And there was a lot of a lot of white people there too. We were asking about the Democrats and Republicans and others. So these white people would say, okay, this is who you're gonna vote for. Then me and these other girls would stand there like, how come there's never hardly any white girls that are running for these offices that time when they were already 18, 19, 25 years old? At that time, the feelings were like uneven? Like, are we going to be counted? Why are we voting for? Or who are we voting for? But my feelings at time was kind of like um, uneven, or but it was good for everybody to vote, so we could be counted. And my feelings were like, okay, I'm gonna vote, and I hope my vote counts in a good way. And that time on voting, my parents would tell me, you get out there and you vote because you are gonna be counted at that time, and you're going to be counted for what you're going to do, what you want to accomplish in your life and your education. So as years went by, I noticed that these Arapaho girls start stepping up to the plate, like, okay, let's try and do this, and let's try and vote and to be counted, and so our kids can be counted too.
I've had received several stories within our community about voter suppression that's been happening for decades. So it's important that when Native American citizens express that they are being suppressed and oppressed in their right to vote, that we listen. And not only that we listen, that we stand with them.
So I think first and foremost, legislatures are one of the biggest barriers for Native women to vote, Natives generally, in fact. When you have legislatures in rural areas, they're creating the rules around voting. A prime example of that is in North Dakota. They had voter suppression going on, where most people on the reservation had P.O. boxes on their IDs. The rule was that it had to be a residential address, so that wiped out an entire fleet of votes. There's this really unfortunate general belief that your vote just doesn't matter. I hear it all the time. I'm only one person. What am I going to do? You know, this is a system that has been designed to oppress me. What is my one vote going to actually accomplish? I think along with changing stigma and the conversation and the narrative around voting will be a huge help as far as increasing Native voting, and especially for women.
And it's thinking Indigenous and not being ashamed of being Indigenous and wearing that on our sleeves when we walk in. It's not being afraid to be that I'm a proud Indigenous woman and I'm strong, and I'm going to wear that on my sleeve too, because even within our Indigenous communities, our women have been suppressed when you talk about males and females as well. With the colonization, you know, I've seen a lot of our women ceremonials, our societies be suppressed because it was the men that rose up.
On the Navajo Nation, when you're talking about voter suppression, we're talking about people who, a lot of our elders don't have residential addresses as required, you know, and that's one of the most important things when it comes to getting Native peoples into some of these offices, because we do need that representation there. And so part of our, when you're talking about suppression, it's talking about people not having valid IDs to vote, who don't speak English, that's not their primary language. And then of course, just getting a state issued ID, going back to that. So it's really, and then how rural we are out here on Navajo Nation, we extend into 3 different states. So we're talking about educating our Navajo citizens on the election deadlines and the process for 3 different states, and really getting the word out to them on those deadlines.
A lot of us are realizing we participate in an electoral system that was never designed for our participation as citizens of the United States. And so we realize that in most tribal nations, we have unique, distinct political relationship that no other race of people or group of people have with the United States. And those are our treaties, which are identified in the United States Constitution. We also remember what our ancestors suffered what they fought hard for. To name a few, our right to speak our languages, our right to practice our ways. And so we remember that. So voting is a very crucial tactic that can move us towards regaining our inherent, our legal, moral right to be caretakers of Mother Earth.
I think Native Americans as a whole, we see now how we can't just be ignorant of political systems and the policies that do affect us. And you know, it's really encouraging to see and, you know, to hear that we need more encouragement and more support to our young people to get involved and to be a part of these systems that, you know, who make, to be a part of the decision-making institutions and to become policymakers too. So I'm very glad for that.
I think it's important that we listen to the moment. The moment is telling us right now that for Indigenous people that our time is now. You know, I've done congressional briefings. I've testified in Congress to, you know, lend the ear, help get the ear and the message that we face here in Indian country. But now, you know, instead of trying to give voice to our issues, I think the time and that we're in right now, especially in the social justice movement, our time is to run for office, not only so that our voices would be heard, but also to ensure that policies reflect and actually impact the people of Indian country.
You know, just by voting, you're being a part of the process, and you're actually part of the group that will bring, you know, you're voting for somebody to get into one of these seats, and they're going to be there to represent you, and that's so important. And then one of the things I want to say is, you know, one of the things that Congress could do is to enact a Native American Voting Rights Act of 2019. I mean, just to have people in there to push for certain policies to be voted upon, to be enacted on our behalf. That's why voting is so important. We need some of these changes to happen, and we just need a voice out there at every level. So be engaged and make sure you vote every election cycle.
Your vote does matter, so internalize that. I want you to all internalize that. And 2, go make your vote matter. Thank you.
So we know our voices matter. They always have, especially in this 21st century. And we clearly understand that our responsibility, we have to vote. We know it's our voice. And I believe there's 2 things that lead our people to new thoughts and action and change. One is believing it's possible, and then believing it's possible for us as Indigenous people. That is so powerful. And I remind us to look around, and the biggest lessons that we're going to learn is to look for our strengths. Look at our families, look at our culture, look at our languages, our tribes, and we hold those strengths close. And I want to encourage us that when life gets tough, because it will, do not be discouraged. We dust ourselves off and we try again and again and again, because we have to. We have so many people depending on us.
So collectively, we are stronger together, and collectively we can create change together, and collectively we can all vote to change the communities and the state and the nation that we live in. Don't ever underestimate your power. Don't ever underestimate that you can do great things, whether you have people behind you or not. So I encourage our young people, and I encourage our Native American community to get out and vote, support your representatives, and support your candidates that are running, because we're in a crucial time where we need to protect our water, we need to protect our land, we need to protect our democracy, we need to protect our freedoms. We need to have legislation that reflects Indian country in a way that we are not oppressed any longer.
The deal is, not only will we be the ones that will live with the events that follow our action or inaction, so will our relations. And I think of the many trailblazers before me, my grandparents, my parents, who have acted so boldly so that I could be where I am today. And I want to be able to, and I like what you said, Representative Clifford, about honor. I want to be able to honor them by voting. And as young people, we have the privilege of being able to show up for our elders and the rest of our community. And it shouldn't stop with those who came before us.
Please honor your ancestors. Your vote is your voice. Hatchet na habethana. Thank you.